So I want to talk about investment properties. So we have a lot of clients. There's a lot of people out there that own rentals.
Yeah.
And I want you to kind of talk about, from a perspective of a landlord, what are the different policies out there? And I'm just going to throw some out there. Let's talk about having your tenant get renter's insurance with
Yes.
liability coverage,
Yes.
Umbrella,
Yeah.
and then the type of coverage that a landlord needs on there. So we can start with what's the type of coverage a landlord has.
So if you purchase investment properties and you have rental properties, which is great, we typically would insure those with a landlord's policy. Now, that's covering the structure. There'll be a little bit of content coverage, not as much as if you lived in it yourself, because really we're just going to insure some appliances, some of your personal property that might be there to service the property. So a little bit of content, but mostly the biggest thing is liability. So we always want to put maximum liability protection on the landlords. And what I really advise, and I do this a lot for my customers that have rental properties, is to get that personal umbrella policy. You definitely need to get that excess liability. Minimum is normally $1 million, but it can go all the way up to $5 million. And the reason we do that is, if there's a loss, the likelihood, there's more risk and exposure of something happening at a rental property. You're not there the whole entire time. You're kind of trusting in your tenant to take care and be responsible. But if something happens, that's why it's better to be well protected and have that personal umbrella policy.
Right. And they're pretty cheap, right? I mean, $200 for $1 million, two to 300.
Personal umbrella policies are very inexpensive for what, if you think about what they protect and what they offer. Absolutely. If we've had in a situation where we had a client who had a rental and a tenant had a guest over and there was a water heater explosion, there was some issue there, and there was some severe injuries. So we know a medical is so expensive. $100,000 in liabilities doesn't go very far anymore.
So liability is something that they should be looking for. And
and vandalism and burglary coverage doesn't automatically come as part of the policy, so you want to make sure that we're adding that additionally as well.
Great.
So those are some tips.
And then what about having a contract in place that requires your tenants to get, because the biggest misnomer out there is, and we've had this happen, the toilet overruns, floods the whole house. The tenant now is looking around saying, well, all my stuff's ruined because we have 4 inches of water in the house. And if they don't have renter's insurance, the landlord's not responsible to cover that. So that's one reason we have it.
So we do always recommend that if you are a landlord, that you do require your tenant to have renter's insurance. Renter's insurance is very inexpensive, but it would cover your contents and provide you with some liability protection.
The tenants.
Yeah, so the tenant, exactly.
Right. Okay.
So if you're the tenant purchases their own renter's insurance, so they've got covered. So they're covered for their own contents, because a landlord's policy, the owner of the home doesn't have coverage on their landlords for that tenant's contents. So it's very important that I recommend that every landlord, owner of that home, requires their tenant to have their own renter's insurance. Super inexpensive, covers their personal property, has liability. Another really nice aspect to it is, if there ever is a loss at the home and there's damage and while you have to have it repaired, you can't live in it, we'll actually pay for you to live somewhere else temporarily. So it covers rented somewhere else for a month or so.
And we have this right now. One of our tenants came from a situation where upstairs bathroom overflowed, just destroyed of his, and now his insurance company, well, actually their insurance company is paying his rent right now. So, how do you make sure as a landlord that your tenant is actually paying their bill? Can you be added on the policy, or how do you get notified?
Do you know what? That's a great point, actually, because there are some landlords, some clients that if they are renting out, they do ask to be added onto the renters as an interested party.
Okay.
And so it's not necessarily that we inform about their bill's being paid, but it's notified if there's a cancellation. So if the policy was canceled or a cancellation notice was sent out, typically the interested party would also be notified.
Okay, yeah, because you want to make sure that they're still have coverage. Because I see we've had tenants in the past who get coverage for the first year, don't renew it.
And don't renew it.
And if you're not on the policy as an additional insurer or an interested party, you'll never know that. So.
Yeah, with ours it's just an interested party. We wouldn't list you as an additional insured because you're not really technically, have insurable interest in that. But we definitely could list you as an interested party, so you're notified of cancellations.
So lots of great information, Jane. I appreciate it. You're always one of our favorite guests. She came in, I think, episode 7, and we're going on episode 70. So I'm going to try and get you back on, come back in sooner, because there's some other stuff we can cover. I mean, there's a lot of stuff that's pretty critical to the real estate transaction for insurance. Okay. So thanks for coming in.
Thanks,
give me your number one more time, your name and number, and how they can contact you.
Okay, Jane with Allstate. It's 775-626-3400. When you're in good hands.
That's great. Okay. Well, you take care, stay safe, and we'll talk to you soon.
All right. Thanks, Ken.
Thank you. We'll see you next time where we have more guests lined up next week. If you want to be on our podcast, we go live once a week and would love some new guests. Give us a call or shoot us a message. You guys have a great week. Thanks.